Hello and welcome to On Air with Owen. Me, Owen Richards, founder and CEO of Air Marketing, your go-to for outsourced B2B sales and marketing, and my new co-host, fellow business owner and great friend, Neil Finnie.
Hey everyone, Neil Finnie here, founder of the Generator Work Hub, a co-working space here in the beautiful Exeter, and also Next Gen Careers, a professional development program nurturing the talents of tomorrow.
Each week, we'll be diving into the everyday truths around running your own business. And trust me, we're not sugarcoating anything. It's all about the highs, the lows, and everything between when you run your own business as a founder.
Expect candid conversations and valuable insights between the two of us. Plus, we'll be joined by some special guests along the way.
So, time to sit back and tune in to this week's honest conversation. Hey guys, so firstly, welcome to our very first episode of the new look On Air with Owen. And we're slightly changing the theme of this in that we're going to be, firstly, having a regular co-host and a regular guest on the podcast, my good friend, Neil Finnie. So let's start there because that's really important. Neil, how you doing? Are you good?
Very good, very good. A year older as of yesterday.
Happy birthday for yesterday. How was it?
Where was my happy birthday WhatsApp message going? My good friend, he missed my birthday.
Oh my God, what a way to start. Jeez, you brought us down
Shocking.
straight away.
Shocking.
Right, I've failed as a friend. Can I take you for a beer tonight?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yes, done. Deal. But was it a good day?
Yeah. I think as you get older, you don't really want to celebrate your birthdays too much because you start thinking about how many you've got left. And you're like, damn, if I'm only celebrating my birthdays, I haven't got a lot of fun left in my life. So every day is a birthday as far as I'm concerned. But it was lovely. Time with the family. Bakewell tart. Amazing. 2 halves of beer. How the times have changed. So, I'm now on halves rather than pints. Again, I want to wake up bright and early for this with you, Owen. So I didn't want to come with a hangover.
Bright and early. Just to be clear, we're recording this at 10 a.m. But yeah, fair enough. I get your point. I'm glad you had a good day, mate. Really good to hear. Look, thanks for joining us. Really excited about this. And I think what we're looking to do with this podcast is, I guess, just get under the skin of running businesses. So I'll get you to give some background in a minute around your journey as a business owner, and I know that's got many different facets to it. But I think there's a gap in podcasts out there where people talking about running a business are the likes of Steve Bartlett and really successful people who are multi-millionaires, perhaps even billionaires. I think that's really hard to associate with and connect with as a normal. Categorize it as normal, but what is normal? We don't know. But as a normal person who's not growing a business in the multi-million pounds, who's not making millions of pounds every year, like, how do we connect with that? We can't. It's really hard. Whereas I think most other podcasts around smaller business out there are very focused on sales or marketing, or I guess a niche topic. So we wanted to do something that Neil and I, and we're going to bring guests in, are just chewing the fat, having a conversation around certain areas of running a business, because I think we see the content about the great stuff. We see the businesses that have grown really, really quickly, that have raised another 2 million in funding, whatever it might be. And we see the stuff about that people want to celebrate and that people want to show off about, and rightly so. And we should be celebrating and acknowledging those things. We don't talk about is the stuff that goes wrong, the stuff that's really hard, the impact it has on you outside of work, how the mistakes that we make, because we don't want to be seen as vulnerable, but also we don't want our clients to see that we're failing. We don't want, our team to know that we're getting things wrong. And we want to just open up on some of those things and just help people to get a feel and a flavor of what it is to start your own business, build your own business, grow, get things wrong, get things right, and hopefully build towards some kind of a goal in the future. And over the coming episodes, we're really going to dig into some of that stuff and learn from your experience, Neil. I'll share my experience as transparent as I can and bring some guests in to tell some of their stories as well. So that is what we're aiming to do. Have I missed anything? Do you want to add anything, Neil?
No, I think you pretty much hit straight on the head there. I think from my side, it's interesting you said about that kind of Steve Bartlett, that those multi-million-pound, you know, businesses, entrepreneurs. And I was thinking about this actually just before we came online. And I think that term entrepreneur, it's a really difficult word, because you're trying to fit so many different types of people, types of businesses into this kind of one word, this one definition. And there are so many. Like, do I relate to Stephen Bartlett or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk? No, not at all. You know, nowhere near. But we all live in our own kind of ways with our businesses. And just because you're not making the millions doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're doing things slightly differently. And I think that's what's going to be really interesting over the course of the episodes, over the podcast, as we start kind of going a bit deeper into that in terms of the aspirations people have with their businesses, and letting people know it's okay not to make those millions every 1 year. Would be nice. Maybe just one year. But yeah, like, I think it'd be interesting to explore that, because, you know, we're all so different as individuals, as people, as business people. And I think celebrating that hopefully will come out through this podcast as well.
So you and I have had this conversation in the pub before, and I hadn't intended on asking this question, but I'm going to, because you just touched on something there around that. Yeah, one year of $1 million would be nice. And you look at these people who've got millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds, and I don't think you or I are aiming to be 100 million in assets and, you know, sell our business at 200 million. That's not our goal. It's a lot more humble than that. So let me ask you the question I've asked you a few times, and I've had no beer this time, so I'll probably remember the answer. What number would is enough? Like, what number makes you go, that's enough for the rest? I don't need to worry anymore. Like,
yeah, it is. Like, I was having a conversation with someone at the space about this, and it wasn't actually about the business. I think it was about winning the lottery, because I think Euro Millions last week was, I think it was 173 million or something. And I think it depends on the day. You know, sometimes I quite like the challenge, the graft, the kind of hard work, the being in the trenches. And then other times I'll be like, oh, that 173 million would be really, really nice. And I can just kick back and, you know, have some passion projects and do whatever I want, or maybe not work at all. I don't know. So I think it's really difficult. And I don't think I can give it an answer. And maybe this will be something that comes out over the episodes that we talk about. As I think some of the time when I talk about things, it also helps me. It's quite cathartic in terms of what I want to achieve in my business. I don't know, like a number. If I had 3 to 5 million in the bank, 3 million in the bank, I think it would be like, okay, I think I'm sorted. And you look at things, don't you? It's like, how much can you retire on? And you see all the Facebook algorithms and the LinkedIn, you know, retire with 500,000 in the bank. I don't know if that's quite enough these days. You know, is $1 million enough? I don't know. It depends. Or maybe I just want to work forever. Maybe I'll find that ikigai, that reason for being, and I won't ever want to give up. And I'll be quite happy just making, I don't know, 60 grand a year, and I'll live in my little outhouse and won't need to kind of do anything, because I'll be self-sustainable, living off the land. It's such a difficult question. Do you know? Do you have a number?
No, do you know what? I think I do. Not a number, but I think you probably reflected my feelings there, which is the no. And I think you can separate the two things, whether you keep working or not, on how much money you kind of reach that point of happiness with. But I think I've said to you a few times, I have a strong belief that over a certain number, people tend to diminish in quality of human, and I don't want to do that. I'm just, absolutely hell bent on not becoming an arsehole just because I might one day make a lot of money. And I think, I think there is a point where it's very hard not to. So I think that 3 to 5 million is a really nice number, right? If you were in a position where you could sell your business for, let's say, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million pounds, whatever it was, or walk away with that amount of money, I'd argue that's enough to live off of, because money makes money, right? You can invest some of that money. You could put something into property. You could start something new and afford for that to fail and for it not to go well. You could put some money in the bank. You could pay off your mortgage. You could have nice holidays. I think from a quality of life perspective, you'd be in a really nice place. but you wouldn't be so rich that you don't have to think about decisions, and that you haven't got to have a plan and be careful with that, because it's not an infinite pot. You wouldn't start thinking about private jets and 16 cars and all that kind of. Well, you might, but you probably wouldn't do both of those alongside each other. And that's the way.
Question for you then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I say now I've got my crystal ball. I'm looking into the future. I'm like, Owen, I can see that 5 million sale in 5 years' time, but you have to give up time with the family to achieve that. It's going to be weekends, it's going to be being away, and you're going to have to sacrifice the time with the boys and with your wife, with Amy and everything else. Do you do it? 5 years sacrifice of not seeing them grow up?
No.
But that's why see, this is the thing, and I think it's really tough. And I speak to Andrea in Barcelona around this. I think some of the reasons maybe that I'm not Steve Bartlett or Richard Branson, because I'm not willing to give that up. Yeah. Like, I like spending time with my family. I like spending time with my friends. And I'm not saying they don't do these things, but I see other people that are in the position where they've got businesses that are really scaling, really growing, that money's coming in. And I think there's a bit of sacrifice there. And I think you have to kind of sacrifice those elements at times. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I don't have that in me.
No.
I'm just not built that way. And for me, it'd be like, if I just can plod on as I am, living the life that I have at the moment, and I get to see my girls grow up, and I get to spend time with Liz, and I get to have, that the time that I have, then that's far more important to me. And I think this is the thing as well, is like it's that balance of sacrifice versus reward.
Interesting point. Look, I want to take a step back, because I think you made a fantastic point there. We're getting into the meaty stuff, and you've referenced a couple of things that you and I know about you, or you know about me, but maybe the audience don't. So I think that leads us into a really nice opportunity just to set the scene for people. So people that don't know you, maybe you could just share a little bit about your businesses and just a bit about you outside of work. So you talked about the girls and Liz and family and that sort of stuff, just so that people understand where you're coming from as we go through this conversation.
Yeah, so I guess I'm lucky enough to have a few things going on that I'm super passionate about, and I really enjoy. And, I've been doing for the last, 12 years now. So one of those is a co-work space based in Exeter. So we've been around for 12 years. Generator Hub. If you haven't been, please come in for a coffee.
Best co-working space in Exeter.
The world, mate, in the world. And I think we can go into more detail another time around the Generator. For me, it is that quintessential co-work space. It's not a Regis or a WeWork that's trying to be something about collaboration and community. We are an independent space, and we're built on that. We're a space with soul. We're all about the people, about the community. Lots of different people in there, and I love it. I love being around different businesses, different business owners, different individuals in freelancing. We got architects, we got artists, and I learn so much. I'm not a massive podcast listener, apart from this one, which is amazing. I don't read that much around business, but I take all of my information from the people that are in the space, and I love it, and it's enabled me to build a community in Exeter that has kept me in Exeter. So I've been super fortunate with that. I then have another business, Next Gen, that's based out in Barcelona, and is very much focused on supporting mainly students transitioning to this new future world of work. A future world of work that's dominated by technology. It's dominated by real changes in terms of how we live our lives as well. So we work with a lot of European colleges, universities, schools, as well as a lot in the US, run programs out like Rome, Lisbon. And again, I get a lot of fulfillment from that as well, in terms of supporting these students really think differently about their transition into the world of work. And then that's kind of split off where we've just launched a new business earlier this year called Career Habit Pro, which is mainly for that kind of, I guess, those already in their career. So not students that are transitioning, but people in their career that have always been very reactive around their careers rather than proactive. So we're trying to to get them to build habits and take more ownership of their careers. Again, it's so unknown in terms of what the future holds that we're just trying to support people really take ownership back to ensure that they're not going to kind of get left behind in this new world, and they're actually going to be able to thrive, not just survive in it. And then I've got Corkscrew. And Corkscrew is, we don't do much with Corkscrew anymore. Corkscrew has its roots in the Second World War, Corkscrew thinking. It's about breaking status quos and about really trying to do things differently. And that's what kind of, I guess, led to the birth of Next Gen and Career Habit Pro and the Generator to some extent. And I think Corkscrew is something for me that I think just embodies how I think anyway. So it's not necessarily a business, but it's a frame of mind from myself and my co-founder Andreu in terms of how we approach our lives and our businesses, that we're not happy, staying with the status quo, and we want to change and adapt things and break things and smash it up and do something new. So I'm quite fortunate. I've got lots of different things going on, and all of them, I would say semi-successful. They don't lose money. But, I think for me, the most important thing is I get out of bed and I love speaking to the team at Next Gen and Career Habit Pro and the Generator. So, I'm super blessed.
Yeah. And outside of work?
Oh, yeah, I do have time to do
stuff.
I'll
give you another prompt. Go on.
Yeah, I think outside, I spend a lot of time with the family. I'm originally not from Devon, originally from Essex. And my wife Liz is from York, originally born in Australia. So we don't have family close by. So I think for us is about spending time also with friends. What we want to do more of, what it's like running a business can dominate. And I think it has dominated in the years. So any kind of free time we get, we like spending together as a family. But I'm being more proactive in trying to now spend time with friends. I've spoken to you, I bought a golf set because I've got arthritic toes and a bad back. Can't really play football anymore. Surfing is becoming a real struggle. So I'm now picking up the golf clubs. But love things like football, watch football now. Now I can't play it. Now I can not only be disappointing playing football, I can also be disappointed following Spurs. Not as bad as following Southampton.
Being proactive with the friends, I do just need to dive in and let people know your nickname that you coined yourself, which is the Finstigator.
The Finstigator, yes. Which was great. The Finstigator, because I wanted to instigate, times for us to meet up, and also not yeah. I'm kind of dumbing down the audience here. Let me explain how it came. Finnie, instigator, bring the two together. Because I think, also, like I said, meet at the pub tonight. I don't want my life to revolve around having to go to the pub and, have a couple of beers or whatever. So I wanted to do stuff away from that, whether that was going for a night bowling or going to a comedy club or doing other bits and pieces. And I think people want to do it, but it's difficult to organize things. And I must admit, it worked for the first 2 or 3 times, and then it got quite big. Like loads of people turned up, and it became really difficult to manage, and that wasn't really the point of it. But now the summer's coming up, I will start doing more events that people can join.
Yeah, it definitely got big as you took us 10-pin bowling with about 40 people, 6 lanes.
Trying to manage it, I was like, this is not what I imagined.
Love it. And final question. So 2 girls. Tell us age of your girls and what it's like to be a dad of 2 girls.
Nerve-wracking. They're brilliant at the moment. Everyone kind of warns me. So they're 11 and 13. Teenage years, stomping about, slamming doors, and they're great. They're lovely kids, and they still want to spend time with us. We sit downstairs, we watch movies together, we'll go out together. And that's lovely. Again, super blessed with that. One super into her dancing phrase. She's amazing at art. But yeah, as most parents know, chasing around, taking them to ballet, horse riding, street dance, whatever it might be. But yeah, super blessed with that. And Liz, my wife, works and really co-founded the Generator right at the beginning. Even though she was having our youngest at the time, which I told her she couldn't have until the Generator had been set up. She was, I think, 3 weeks overdue because I said, don't have the baby yet.
Hold it in.
We haven't got time for that. But she comes from a science background, and I think she gave up a lot for the family because she's a doctor of science, super smarts, stem cell scaffolding, and I've tried to read her thesis, and I get to like page 2, and I probably understand a couple of words in it, and it's really tough. So but she sacrificed that for the kids and the family, but hopefully now is looking at getting it back into that, which would be amazing for her.
Love that. Love that. Look, obviously we're not going to do this every episode, but it's really good for you to give that context to people listening. And we share a number of things, right? We share a love for football and a disappointment in the teams that we support. You being a Spurs fan and me being a Southampton fan, different levels, I will just say, very different levels, but nonetheless, I mean, we share the love of all things sport generally. Played tennis a few times together, and you say looking to go play a bit of golf and just get out there, and we share the fact that we're running businesses, and that we're parents, and we're trying to balance that desire to be present as a dad and as a member of the family, whilst also being a driven, ambitious, and wanting to be successful business owner. And I think that's a challenge in itself, right? But let's get into the topic today. So we decided to start at the beginning, didn't we? And we wanted to talk about how you actually set up a business in the first place, because there will be people who are watching and listening to this who are thinking, yeah, but how on earth did you start? Like, what do you have to do to go from being an employee to actually having a business? The idea, the process to get it going, giving it a name, getting it to the point where actually you win your first customer, hire your first person. What are the things that have to happen in there? So we're going to just dive in, and let's just hear some of your story and share some of the things that worked really well, some of the things that you did, some of the things that absolutely didn't work well and not to do next time. I'm really keen to, what was your first business? Where did it all start?
You hear it a lot. It's that kind of cliche of when I was at school, used to sell sweets at the tuck shop. And, I think there was a time as well, we used to run a bit of a bookies where we'd have like the newspaper with the horses that were racing. We'd take some bets, and so it was always that kind of thing. Me and my mate Nick, and I was also always around, I guess, entrepreneurship and business. My dad had his own business. It was in shipping. It wasn't necessarily that he spoke a lot about it, but knowing that someone in your family has a business, I think makes it a lot more achievable. I think it doesn't seem like it's necessarily out of reach. But was never really, I don't want to say I wasn't academic at school. I just didn't try. I wasn't necessarily that driven in school. So didn't leave with kind of great qualifications. And then purely because of the fact that I think I was on the verge, or did get kicked out of being at home, that the idea was I had to then go and get a job, and started pouring concrete, digging holes in construction. But from that, realized I could make more money going self-employed. So I think from that stage, when you're quite young and you need to kind of make more money, not necessarily because you want to, but you've got to cover rent, you've got to cover food, you still want beer tokens, you still got to pay for the club, you want to take someone out on a date. It's expensive. And I think that kind of driving factor to earn more money to do those things led me to become self-employed. And then you start figuring out, well, how do I become self-employed? Well, I have to research this, or I have to learn about this, or I have to ask someone for help over here. So right from the beginning at like 17, 18, I think I was really good at learning what I needed to do, how to set something up. And I think we see this in areas of, I guess, poverty to some extent, where people need to make money. So they're quite creative in how they approach things, and they'll kind of maybe do a little bit more to bring in that extra income. So that was the start of it, being self-employed, pouring concrete. And I think from that is then just about spotting opportunities. And I think that willingness and that desire to learn and to teach yourself stuff is, that lifelong learning is massive. I'm sure you've had it as well, that you're trying to understand how something works, and you have to just, God, I wish I had YouTube when I was 17 and 18, and Google and all these things that you can teach yourself. But then I guess on top of that is noticing opportunities. So, working in another example is working in the French Alps when I was 19 to probably kind of like mid-20s. But when I first started working in the Alps, it was very Saturday to Saturday, Sunday to Sunday holidays. But from then going to New Zealand and seeing more of a backpacker style on the ski fields is like then coming back to France, and then thinking about developing something in that. And it was actually an old girlfriend of mine. She had this idea of this backpackers, and that's when EasyJet was launching. So worked with her in terms of supporting her getting that set up and that created. So again, in my kind of mid-20s, early 20s, I was involved in this startup around this mountain center. And that was amazing to be part of, and again, showed me what was possible. And that was from an opportunity of you know, EasyJet launching and saying, actually, people don't have to do Saturday to Saturday, Sunday to Sunday. The co-work space. I'd worked in co-work spaces in London. I'd worked in co-work spaces overseas. Exeter didn't have one. And I was able to take a bit of a punt on extra space for another business at Corkscrew that I knew I was bringing students in for, but like, actually, we can do something else here. Here's an opportunity. I've seen co-work spaces work in other areas. I can take a punt on it. I had to learn how to take on leases, how to deal with landlords, but just having that willingness to give it a go and not fear failing and learning from my mistakes. At the same time as this student program was launching, also went to a vineyard in Devon. Just, I had no idea Devon had wine. And a friend said, oh, look, we'll go to this vineyard. And it was amazing. Old Walls in King Stainton. And I'd been to vineyards in New Zealand, in South Africa, and they were always amazing. I was like, here's an opportunity. I can create a wine tour business and a cider tour business, because cider's also made it, just because I knew there was an opportunity there. And I worked with a friend in designing some logos and some ideas, and, you know, how to launch a business, and not how to launch a business, how to build like a website for, I guess, an e-commerce site. And just kind of made things up a little bit as I went. It didn't work. You know, what I figured out very, very quickly with the wine tour business is I have no interest in driving people around vineyards. I have an interest in drinking wine.
Slightly different.
I do not enjoy. And I quickly understood as well that was going to be very much a lifestyle business. If I was in my, you know, late 50s and I just wanted to make a bit of money, that was great. But it never had the potential, I don't think, to really go on to be something bigger. And I did want bigger. You know, I didn't necessarily want the millions, but I wanted bigger than a little lifestyle vineyard business.
It's funny, isn't it, when you think about that that notion of just scrabbling through it and trying to work it out. I do feel there's a perception that you have to get to a certain point before you can start your own business, or the first one has to work. And obviously with the things like the cost of living nowadays, people have got to be earning money. So this period without earning money and without certainty of earning money is a real point of fear for people around taking that leap and taking that jump. Now, I'm not somebody to say everybody should start a business. I really don't believe that. And I think that is, we get a lot of that wrong advice, which is, yeah, you should go for it. Actually, there are people that are not cut out to be a business owner. They're far better suited to safety, security, consistency, getting paid every month, you know, and actually that risk is not right for them, their personality, their persona. Or maybe their idea, or a combination of many things. But I do think, you know, that a lot of people should that don't, and they're held back by that fear of failure, by that fear of the unknown, by the fear of uncertainty. And it really helps to know what it's like to live without money before that happens, because you do have to do that, right? You have to not have the same standards or expectations around income and lifestyle for a period of time, whether you're starting a business with investment or just off the you know, the £10 you got in your bank account because you're a student and you're going to go and do something. You've got to accept that there will be a period of time where your income is not at the level that you want it to be, and you have to make adjustments and changes. I'm sure you did in the early days of starting the generator, and you're talking about having we've got, again, something in common, having our first child and starting a business at the same time. Certainly didn't make for an easy ride. That process of actually getting an idea into a business, what are the things that you remember that were maybe really complex or really complicated, and what are the things that you just did and didn't think about?
I think for me is starting as quickly as possible. And, you know, another idea, we had this idea around the soap business. I always wanted to launch a product.
Here we go.
And for every business, it's always been exactly the same, is coming up with a concept, coming up with a name, knowing that you don't have to stick to that name. I learned how to build websites. And, you know, when I say learn how to build websites, you know, you have developers, they're like, that's all bullshit. No, you can't.
Did you? Yeah.
Did you really? But, you know, I think it was probably about 15 years ago, like WordPress. using a theme, creating something. You know, the amount of domain names I've bought is phenomenal. Always buying domain names and then throwing together a quick website and then using some social media to push it out there and to test things. You know, Kiwa was the soap brand, and we thought we'll have a litter pick because it was all around sustainability and we'll get people together. And, you know, I had a friend, AD, great designer. If you ever need logos or graphics, AD Stone, phenomenal. Got him to pull together a logo for me, and you know, we thought about building it, you know, in terms of this business. Didn't get the traction that I was after, and also I was busy doing other bits and pieces. But it's trying something really, really quickly, and it doesn't take that much time. But it is a willingness to give up your evenings or your weekends or the spare time you have in building that out, because you've still got a job to do. You know, I had the generator, I had the corkscrew, I still had other responsibilities, but I wanted to try other things. But nowadays, it's even easier with things like Shopify or, you know, Wix, that you can just build or not even that, you can go straight to Instagram with an idea. And it's seeing if you can get any traction. And I think from my side, after I've kind of built that initial early brand and thrown together a logo, thrown together a website, is trying to think, how do I generate interest in this business? You know, am I going to have to pick up the phone and call businesses? Am I going to be able to do it through Instagram? Am I going to be able to sell through that? Am I going to be able to leverage someone that I know? So I think that's the kind of the second step, is seeing, you know, how do I generate business? For the wine tours, I found that the best way to do that was actually to use Virgin Experiences and those red letter days that I could advertise on it. Yes, I was giving up 50, 60%. I think actually it wasn't 60%. I think it was 40% commission, but that was fine because I was testing it. I was like, do people want this? And I think I hear this with a lot of people as well, especially with kind of product-based businesses. Like, well, I was going to use Etsy or I was going to use this, but the commissions are so high. Like, you test it, it doesn't matter. You know, you want to get your product out there. You know, you're going to be spending 30% on marketing anyway. So, you know, you might as well use platforms already there. So I think, you know, number one is just creating something as quickly, as easily as you can, and then figuring out how you get to your customer and be super targeted with your customer as well. You know, think about those super fans that you're going to find and engage with those, and also, you know, massage them, not literally, you can do, but it's about making them feel special. And I think we did that at the early days, like with the generator and with corkscrew, especially, you know, not massaging. We still do massages at the generator if you need. Yeah. So anyone that's at the generator, do not ask me for a massage. But I think it was about making them feel special, and they were special, you know, at the beginning, because they bought into this idea of co-working. First one in Devon, a lot of people didn't know really what it was about, but they bought into it, and we wanted to make them feel like they were part of a movement, part of the community. And I think it's about getting people to understand that at the beginning of businesses, get those early people on board with you. And Corkscrew, when it first launched around the kind of student development stuff and that career stuff, I'm still in contact with the first people that are on the program. The first program was freaking awful. I had no furniture, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, but they felt that they were part of something, and they really bought into it. So
yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Those early stages. I think back to it. So for context, I started Air in 2016, and I think people now that meet me now, they see we've got a team of nearly 100 people. We've done reasonably well, right? We've had our challenges, and I'll share more stories around that over the coming episodes, I'm sure. But they don't think about the early days and the period of time from when I decided to set up the business in 2015 through to when I launched the business in February 2015 and opened the doors in March 2016, in somebody's meeting room that I begged, borrowed and stealed, the Finstigator.
How's that hand dry outside in the pub?
Yeah, of course. So story behind that. So we rented Neil's, actually how I met Neil in the discussion towards this, his meeting room in a co-working space, much to the disgust of the people in the co-working space who had one fewer meeting room for them to use during that period of time, for £150 a week. I still remember it now. We rented it for, it was a bargain. It was an absolute bargain. Rented it for 3 weeks before the Easter holidays to test whether I could make this team and this business work. Very similar to what you're talking about there. it was brilliant, really fit for purpose. I brought the laptops in or computers in, those, set them up, got them ready, turned it into a little office, and I had my 2 or 3 new people who were working part-time for me, trying to sell on the phone for our first client. And I was trying to sell air, basically, cold calling, trying to build air and get out to meet people. And I was teaching them how to do it and all that sort of stuff. There was one significant problem, which was the other side of the wall was the men's toilets. And whenever somebody turned the hand dryer on, the Wi-Fi would stop. And obviously our phones are Wi-Fi based. So that was a real problem for us. So it was a bargain, but I think we also had to, work around some things. We had to kind of keep an eye on whether anyone was going to the toilet and quickly finish our conversations and all that. But, it's this stuff. These are the stories you remember, because 8 years later, we're still laughing about that and telling the story about it. And it's that kind of a workaround solution that gets you there. And I think if I look back to that period as I was building it, I was sat on holiday. I remember it really well, with our entire family building a business plan on my holiday. And in the evenings, coming back from my job in London and building the website whilst we had a newborn. I had a newborn in my arms, 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to get back to sleep, building a website, because I just had to make the most of every single minute. And we've talked about, the fact that first, certainly 6 months, but maybe even longer, 12 to 18, my immune system was shot. I was parent for the first time, on limited sleep, the highest level of stress and pressure I've ever been under, the highest capacity of workload I've ever had. Nobody to turn to in the business who've been there for any long. No one cares as much as you do. And it's really flipping stressful. When things go right, it feels great. When things go wrong, you're the only person. The buck stops with you with everything. And when 2 or 3 things go wrong, whether that's one client thing, one technology-based thing, all of a sudden I'm the IT manager. How on earth did I become an IT manager? I've got no clue how this stuff works. Whilst I've got pressure at home to pick up some nappies and get home to help to give my wife some time off. Whilst I've got a client demanding something that they need ready for tomorrow morning, there's only so much you can juggle. And I always liken it to that glass of water. It's like when a glass of water is full, you can tip little bits in. You can always get a little bit more in, right? But there's a point at which it starts to flow. And when it's flowing, there ain't no way to make things better but to tip it out and start again, or to tip some out and release some capacity. But you just don't feel like you've got that ability to get rid of stuff when you're in that mode. And there's loads more I can talk around that topic, but I put that year down alongside 2020, which was a different year, a very difficult year for a whole different reason. That's probably the most difficult year of my life. It was the beginning of something amazing, right? And I kept telling myself during that year, this is about tomorrow. Everything I do today feeds in tomorrow. It will get better and better over time, and it did. But my God, I wouldn't have got there without the resilience and the ability to take it on the chin, and the sacrifice of all the things we talk about. Didn't have much social life, gave up a lot of things, exercise, and I wouldn't do that now, but exercise took a back seat, which it definitely shouldn't have done. But all of these things build and build and build. And it took a while for me to recover from that, probably physical and mental health wise. But I equally wouldn't change it in a weird way, because it got me to where I was now. And I just wonder if you've got any sort of similar stories or aligned stories to that.
Question for you. Would you advise, because it's really difficult, and I'm going through this at the moment. It's really tough if you're trying to support someone that's starting a business, or they want to be an entrepreneur and go down that route. Is obviously in this day and age as well, when we talk about mental health and we talk about work-life balance and all that, I'm still of the belief that those are some of the things that actually most of us that have launched businesses will go through. If you haven't been through that, if you haven't been through the burnout, the stress, really pushing yourself to the limits, then you've been super, super fortunate. You've been very, very lucky. So how do you support someone that's going to launch a business and say that, look, you're going to have to do 70, 80 hours a week. You're gonna have to push through, not take off bank holidays. Bank holiday is a bank holiday, but you're not gonna have a bank holiday because you need to get this done. Because is it right to tell someone that you're just gonna have to do it, and that to expect that, and actually to do that, you have to work all the hours, you have to do that? Or is it now in this day and age that you can't promote that, or you can't push that? You have to be mindful and take a step back, give yourself time. How do you approach that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point and a good question. I think I would absolutely say it out loud, because I think if somebody is suffering from falls gladly in there, that's an issue, right? They're going to fail. And I think if you care about that person, or you like them, or whatever, you want to support them, then you should absolutely say it out loud. So, but I would perhaps reframe it a little bit. So I don't think it's that you have to. And I think that some people do get lucky, you're right, but the majority of people are going to need to do it if they want to build an actual business, right? If they want to just work for themselves, lifestyle business, different story. If you want to build a successful business that maybe one day will turn over 1 million, 4 million, 5 million, 10 million pounds, then you've got to get through that. It doesn't mean you'll have to, right? Because the reality is you can choose not to grow it as quickly. You can dial back, you can be less aggressive. But there'll be a compromise somewhere else. You pull here and you push there.
Yeah.
But if you want to go as fast as you can, then you're going to need to do some of those things. Not necessarily all of them, but some of them. And I think generally speaking, you have to point that stuff out to people, or at least maybe tell them some of your stories. But the reframing piece for me would be the advice that I would give. Unsolicited advice. No one's asked for it. We always do it, but I would, which is that you'll need to do those things, but whatever you do, find the 2 or 3 things in your life that are most important outside of that business and protect them. So for me, the things that I didn't get right with my first child, I was nowhere near as present in the first 6 months of his life as I was with my second or third. And I regret that, right? And that's something that I think back, I think if that had been, if I'd have pointed that out to myself, if I'd have protected that more, I could have found more time. That's not to say I would have not worked hard on the business, but there are ways that I could have protected that time. Second was exercise. I really unhealthy. I put a lot of weight on, all that sort of stuff. And I look back now and I think we make excuses that it's hard to exercise because I'm tired, I'm stressed, but actually you're feeding the problem. Now I'm much better at that, and I protect my exercise and prioritize it over other things. It doesn't need to be extreme elite exercise. It can just be 3 times a week, going to the gym, whatever, half an hour. It can give you a walk before, or a walk at lunchtime. And I would say to people, if you're going to go through that, make sure that you protect your health in other ways, whether that's mental health through having value in the other things, being good at the other things that you need to be important. That might be being a husband, wife, partner, dad, mum, whatever. But that might be your social life. Make sure you still see friends, because people switch that off, and make sure that you look after your physical, mental health. And that's, for me, exercise and diet, the 2 big things where I just drank more, ate more, and exercise less. And that is a really difficult scenario. So yeah, I do think you have to go through it. I think you have to be prepared to go through it. I don't think it happens to everybody, and there are different levels as well. But if it demands it, you've got 2 choices. You either head down, knuckle down and get through it, and it will go away over a period of time as you make good decisions and you bring good people into the business. But everything, you work in quarters, not weeks or days. You work in quarters in terms of improvement, and years. Or you walk away, and those are your choices. And if you're going to walk away, there's no point in doing it in the first place, because at some point it's coming, right? Whether you like it or lump it, even when you think that the business has got to a place where actually we've got really lucky, and the first 2 years have been really easy, and we've grown, and I had this, something happens where it falls apart again, right? Something happens where it goes wrong, a key person leaves, you can't control it, you're back in having to do somebody else's job again, and you're back where, you're kind of back 6 months, maybe a year on progress. That will happen every year or 2 years. Something like that will happen in your business. So it's not just the early days, but I think that capacity of work in the early days, where you don't have somebody in IT, you don't have someone in HR, you don't have someone in finance, you can't afford them. So you are doing all those things, means that, your glass will be overflowing all the time. So yeah, I don't know if that's useful, but that's the way I would look at it, is that, yeah, it's coming at some point. You might get lucky, but you won't get lucky forever. You probably find the early days demand so much more from you than you expect if you're trying to build a real business, and if you don't get lucky, and you need to be prepared for it and protect the things that are really important.
I think it's an interesting one you said about it is coming. We know this, COVID, the energy crisis. For me, it was Brexit. These things happen. I think what's interesting for me in the early days, that struggle doesn't feel like a struggle, because I'm so passionate. Yeah, it's a new brand, it's a new baby, it's a new thing, and it's far easier. I think actually when it becomes harder is when you've grown, and then you get Brexit, and it's like, that's annoying. I'm going to have to go and, you know, launch a business in Barcelona because, you know, that's okay. So we go again. I've still got some motivation here. It's like, oh, okay, now we've got COVID. Okay, everything that we built is gone. You know, for how long, we don't know, because obviously a lot of our stuff was in person. No one was traveling. It's like, right, so we're going to have to go again, and we're going to have to build it out remotely. We had some stuff there, but I'm older. I go to bed earlier. I need more sleep. And also the business has been around for a while. So I don't have maybe the passion that I had in those early days. I still, you know, love what I do. I'm super fortunate, but it doesn't have that excitement because it feels like you're kind of being knocked back and you're having to go again. And that's where the resilience really has to kind of kick in. And I think this is what's important about having people around you that are supportive. And I don't just mean family. For me, like I know you have support from, you know, Australia and other people in your network, but you pretty much go solo. You know, my businesses, I've got partners. I've got Jim at the Generator. You know, I've got Andreu in Spain. You know, Alba's now part of that with Career Habit Pro in Spain as well. So I don't go solo because that gives me the resilience, because I've got that support network that if I'm struggling, someone else can take up some of that slack and vice versa. And it's really important to get that. And as you get older and you go through those bumps, it becomes much harder to bounce back. And we saw it during COVID. I was speaking to my accountant, and she said a lot of those older business owners, that was it for them. They're like, right, this is it. This is the stop. And I think that comes from, you know, so many of those things over the lifetime of running a business, that when COVID came along, the idea of going back and doing it again, really tough, really tough.
Yeah, you know, it's one phrase that sticks in my mind. I don't know where it came from or who said it to me, is that if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I think that's the point, right? Is that you know, as I sit here now, and there's one owner of a business and nearly 100 employees here, and within Generator, there's, you know, the two of you and however many people you employ, and same with the next gen, and so on and so forth. It's like the ratios of the people who own the business versus are employed are you know, X to 1. I don't know what that number is in the UK, and I think, you know, in terms of you then narrow that down to businesses that employ 10 or more people. Really, you know, for me, a reasonably small number. It's high, right? Because most businesses that do start don't last for the first year or two, and certainly don't grow to £1 million or more. And, you know, that's a really difficult thing to do. Yes, you can get lucky and do it. And yes, there are new ways of doing it that maybe aren't your story or my story, or I like them. So you hear these people who become, you know, influencers or whatever, and they're doing things that I'm like, I have no idea what they're doing. That's fine. Great. Good on them. And it's a different kind of business, right? But they are absolutely running a business in their own right, and kudos to them. But to do it in the traditional way that you and I have, which is to build a team, to have a product or a service and to sell that, and to probably have a physical space and need infrastructure and systems, all that sort of stuff. Actually, you know that journey is hard, because of how few people are able to A, start it in the first place, and then B, actually turn it into something that we might deem as a real business. And yeah, I just love hearing the stories of people trying to do that, and the things that have worked for people. And I love learning from people's experiences and the things that they absolutely wouldn't do again, you know, the absolute horror stories that come back. And I think, you know, I've touched on that sort of health and balance thing. For me, is the one that I always look back on, is that regardless of the business, there's loads of things I do differently in terms of business, like strategic decisions, tactical decisions, stuff with marketing, hire that person sooner. Maybe I wouldn't have taken that role on. That was definitely a bad hire. You know, all those sorts of things. Fine. But I'm prepared to not go, I'd do that differently, because actually that's part of the process of getting there. But the bit around looking after myself, looking after mental and physical health, protection of outside of work, things that are really important, is always the lesson that I look back on. And I regret some of those things. I think those are things I won't get back. Those are memories or time that I won't get back. And that's really, really important to have those. And I'm sure you have a couple of those bits that you look back on, whether it's personal or within the business. You think, my God, that was a really poor way of managing things, or a poor decision, or whatever, from any of the businesses.
Yeah, I try. Like, the thing is, I often get asked this, and there was there was an evening, like, what was it called? Like, I think I can swear on this.
Yeah, I think I already have.
It's called the fuck up night. And it's this big movement across the UK, and get asked to come along and talk about the times that you've fucked up in your business and everything else. And I found it really difficult, actually, not to say that I haven't, but I tend not to dwell on them in terms of those decisions. So I think if I'm looking back, and I think we were going to talk about, if you could change one thing, or if you started again, what would you maybe do differently? And it's really tough because I look at the whole thing. I don't just look at the business. I look at the friends I've made. I look at the experiences I've had. I look at the time I spent, again, with the family. And I was like, well, how could I have changed something? Yes, I might have gone back and, maybe I could have pushed our virtual internships that we created, 5 years before everyone else in the market of youth travel. If we pushed that a bit more, if I'd gone after it a bit more, we would be the organization that's pulling in 5, 6, 7 mil, not, virtual internships over here. But there would have had to have been sacrificed somewhere else. And I don't think I would be willing to kind of give that up. So like problems and things that I've got over, it's like, I find it really difficult to think about those because I just don't want to dwell on them.
Yeah. Well, let's move on then. Let's move on because we don't have to dwell. And that's the beautiful thing about this. We get to make the decisions.
Maybe I can tell the problems as we're moving forward. This week, this is my problem because then I'll remember.
There you go. There you go. Good idea. Good idea. I'm going to ask you one more question before we wrap up. I've got a bugbear about something, and I want to share it and just get your response to that. And this ties into the bit we're talking about, like it will be hard and it will be difficult, and you're going to have to make sacrifices and all that kind of stuff. And I guess this also links into my point earlier around why starting a business isn't right for everybody. Because actually, if you're not prepared for that, you might get lucky and not need to do it, but if you do, you've got to be able to no one else is going to get you through that. So that's why it's like, actually, you've got to be a certain type of person to get through that, I think. And that's not right for everybody. My bugbear, though, is this 5 a.m. club mentality. So I think one of the things that's advertised by very famous and successful business people and entrepreneurs and all sorts of people across life is this idea of, if you want to get ahead, you've got to be up at 5 a.m. You've got to eat your quinoa breakfast. You've got to go to the gym for 17 hours. You've got to walk 48 miles. You've got to meditate for a couple of days. You've got to drink some raw eggs with a, I don't know, feather in it. And then finally you can go to work and be normal. And I've always found that fucking frustrating, to be quite frank, because my view on this is, you know what? Some people really like their sleep. Some people operate in a different way. Some people are evening people and operate better when they've been up for a while. They've had some coffee. They've been through a day. They've done their exercise. Some people like to exercise in the morning. Some people like to exercise in the evening. I don't think you need to be up before everyone else to be successful. I think you need to be working harder than other people. You need to be working smarter than other people. But I don't actually think it's about than other people, full stop. I think it's about you being the best version of you, working as hard as you can to make it successful for you, because it's not about beating other people. It's about your journey and getting on it. And I think you can do that whether you want to wake up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, which would be lovely for me with 3 kids, by the way. I think we coin that as a lie-in nowadays. Or whether you want to get up at 4 or 5 a.m., that's okay. But it's a real bugbear for me that it's assumed or advertised that if you're going to do that, you've got to be a 5 a.m. and you've got to be up before everyone else and take advantage and be working at the weekends. And, I think there's a real downside to that mentality as well. And I don't like it being advertised as a positive. And it's one of my bugbears around starting a business.
Okay, question for you, Owen. How many of those people do you know in person that actually live that life? Like, for me, I see it on LinkedIn. I see it on Instagram. Let's take Jim Strong, my business partner at the Generator.
Yeah.
Does he have a quinoa breakfast? No. Does he get up at 5 a.m.? No, because he's actually up to about 2 a.m., working, and I get emails at unsightly hours. Does he go to the gym every day? No. Is he very successful in business? Yes. He's got another business, very, very successful. But he knows how to manage his time. He's got a family. He tries to go to the gym. He does, he spends his weekend with his families and everything else. But he's definitely not buying into that kind of lifestyle element of this is what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You know, I see other people in the space, you know, very successful businesses. Do they lead that life? No, I don't think there's anyone in the space that leads that life. Do I lead that life? No. Again, I'm up early, but again, I think that's my age. You know, it's not necessarily the kids now. That's many times during the night. But I'm up at like 5 a.m. trying to get the kids up, making noise because I'm lonely. But I think it's as you say, and it adapts. Like I now send emails and I look at my emails at that kind of 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning because I've got a bit of time. I've got a bit of space. I want to take the kids to school and then I'll go to the gym for, you know, half an hour or 45 minutes just because it's good for my mental health. I know that. I think that it's interesting, isn't it? That kind of lifestyle element, because I think that's everywhere now, regardless of if you're, you know, an entrepreneur or someone in just in your general life, that you have to live a certain way. We all want to be healthier. You know, we all want to live for longer and have more longevity. But I think I agree that element of that's how you have to live your life to be successful. I think that puts another pressure on you that you don't want. You know, the pressure from the business and life in general is enough. And if you're worried about, I didn't get up at 5 a.m. and have my granola smoothie, beetroot and avocado, or whatever, that I'm not going to be successful, or I'm not going to get through the day, and I'm not going to be, you know, performing at my highest. It's bullshit, you know. I don't know. Maybe let's give it a go. Maybe we could give it a go. So we could have a week of doing it. Maybe you have to do a month, and we can see.
I'm all right. Let's not do that. But I do have another idea, which is if somebody wants to come and join us on the show and be our guest for the week, they can educate us on the 5 a.m. club and why that's an important part of their success. Then we'll have them on, right? And I think that's part of this and leads us into, I guess, my wrap up here, which is that we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to invite people to join us sometimes as well and talk about different parts. So today we've really focused on starting a business, getting it off the ground, and that sacrifice that you have to make to get there. And we're going to focus on different parts of the journey of building a business and share some of our stories around things that have happened within our businesses and some great decisions we've made and some brilliant wins and some fantastic things that we know work and some things that we know absolutely don't. So that if you're running a business, you can learn from our mistakes, learn from our wins, and maybe share yours as well. If you want to write to us and you've got any questions or you want specific topics for us to cover, then really happy to do that. If you want to come on the show, come on the show. We'd love to hear from other founders and hear about their journey of building a business and all of the fun stories. I call them war stories. Share some war stories with us, because they are absolutely fantastic learning opportunities for our watchers and listeners. But Neil, really enjoyed today and really looking forward to digging into another conversation with you next week, and we'll dig into some different areas of running a business. Any final thoughts? Anything we've missed? Anything you want to add off the back of today?
No, but make sure I get in the wheatgrass smoothie for you this evening, just so we make sure we're staying on top of our game.
I appreciate that, and I will be fresh for our next episode that way, rather than hungover and feeling rotten. Which birthday drinks, wheatgrass smoothie. There you go. That's great, isn't it?
Happy days. Happy days.
Happy days. Neil, thank you so much. Really appreciate having you on. See you next time.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. See you later.